Welcome to Components Live in Valencia. I'm Patrick Bosek.
I'm Noz Urbina.
And we are very happy to be having a conversation today here in this lovely little bar that's a friend of yours about all things content operations, probably a little bit of philosophy on AI as we get later into the day here. But before we get going, let's just talk a little bit about who we are, what we're doing here, what maybe Components is, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. So I'll let you start. Noz, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right. So I'm Noz Urbina. I am a founder of Urbina Consulting. I also run the OmnichannelX podcast and the Truth Collapse podcast. Urbina Consulting is where we work with international brands on content management, artificial intelligence, systems integration projects. My background is mainly structured content modeling, customer journey mapping, and now getting more into knowledge graphs and ontologies.
Makes sense. So all things content.
Yes. I'm also on the Truth Collapse side, a big critic and like to raise caution and awareness about the dangers of these technologies as well.
Yeah, I think that goes beyond content work. So that's much more in like the AI, social media, algorithmic decision-making space, right?
Well, yeah. I think content people are involved in content strategy and content delivery, and how we deliver content is also, I think, an important part of it. Like I'm a big medium as the message guy. So, if you are defining how content is going to be delivered, then you are part of the discussion, whether you want to be or not.
Fair point. So I'm Patrick Bosek. I'm one of the founders of Heretto. For a long time, it was known as Easy Data, but for the last 5 or so years, it's been Heretto. I'm also the CEO. I've spent most of my career in technical communications, dealing with content. We met through technical communications a decade ago.
Easily,
yeah,
I think
maybe more. Yeah,
we're getting older.
Yeah, it's terrible to date ourselves that way.
Yeah,
you can see my gray hair. You can't see yours. You've done a good job of hiding it.
I would love to have gray hair.
So I've spent my time in this industry thinking about working on building for structured content, primarily for documentation. So I would say my interests are maybe a little bit more specialized than yours, where you have a little bit more general knowledge, a little more general practitioner experience, going into things like customer journey mapping, how content goes into those things. So it'll be a lot of fun.
I was just going to agree that so we are doing a lot more in marketing and knowledge management these days, which is tech-com adjacent. And what's good is I've always said that the things that I learned in my completely tech-com focused years have served me very well.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think we see the different disciplines of content blending quite a bit these days. Mm-hmm. I think especially as you're starting to see things come out like agentic commerce, how are you going to be able to take people who are searching for things for knowledge and then direct them to solutions that involve products? That kind of stuff is going to become essential. But we'll get into all of that. So before we jump into where we want to start in very tech-com focused terms, what is Components? So Components, this is Components Live, has been kind of a long-running podcast / show / I guess LinkedIn podcast live type thing for a little while. Anyways, it's been a production of Heretto. It's had 5 or so seasons, however you want to count. And we just kind of do these whenever there's something interesting to talk about. So we're hoping that this conversation today is the input for maybe a whole season of Components. It'll be interesting to see what we do with it.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. So let's jump into our first topic, which is right in the space of tech-com primarily and the technologies and thought processes around it. So we wanted to start by talking about structured content operations in this present moment. So as we're recording, we're just starting February in 2026. So obviously right in the middle of all the things that are happening with AI and structured content, debates about unstructured, where that fits, metadata, all those things. Before we get into some of our specific questions, I'd love to hear, what your experience in very general terms has been over the last maybe 6 months or a year in the transition to a more AI-driven economy as it relates to structured content and the practice of technical communications.
Well, the first thing that jumps to my head is that we're having the same discussions again. We've always had in the content space, technical communication especially, which is often seen as a cost center rather than something more tied to revenue driving, this huge desire for it to just go away. Can't you just cease to exist, please?
Right.
Why do you have to have all these specialized tools and processes, and why do you keep showing up at meetings? That's kind of the attitude we get a lot from the budget holders. And with AI, the AI vendors are showing up and basically going, we invented the magic wand. Finally, you can, stop thinking and having process and all that silly stuff. So there's a lot of temptation to just chuck all the PDFs in a bucket and let the AI figure it out, or just point the AI at the website and forget about it, which is, we've had various iterations of that over the years. I think there's been can't we just throw up a wiki? Can't we crowdsource it? Can't the engineers write it? There's always just some way to avoid having an actual specialized function and discipline. So that's the first thing comes to mind. And then there is the small kind of minority of more forward-thinking companies who realize that they have a more complicated problem and are actually looking at solutions.
Yeah, I think I see that too. This moment for me is really reminiscent of the crowdsourced documentation moment, which I want to say is like 10 years ago now, when that was really popular, where organizations said, oh, we don't need technical writers. We'll just have our customers write the documentation. That'll obviously work. The wisdom of the crowd. It works in markets. Why wouldn't it work in documentation? And then, of course, when was the last time you heard of somebody setting up a crowdsourced site for documentation? I mean, it's been 8 years maybe. So that was, to me, it had all the same hallmarks at this moment, where people thought that, again, they could delete this, they could get away with doing it in another way. So I see that too.
Yeah, on the data side, I see that we're also returning to the discussion of it's caused a minor resurgence in the discussion of data lakes. Like let's throw all the data in a lake as well. Then the AI will just eat that. On the positive side, I'm also seeing the ascent of some people who are looking at the assembly of context, the proper dosing and feeding of AIs. So I think that there are some people who are getting it, and we're going to get into, of course, what getting it looks like. But my initial reaction is a bit of a sigh, jaded consultant sigh. What's a good about it is it's a moment of change.
Yeah.
So every time we have a new channel or platform that comes out, there's transition. Especially with TechComm, it's great to take advantage of a moment of change and make something happen. And you can just kind of go up and make an argument saying, we have to be part of this change. There are things that if we don't take advantage of this moment, then we won't be able to X. And I think that's a positive thing for technical communicators. I'm seeing a lot of them being able to just say, if you want this to work, then something has to happen differently.
That's a really good point. And I want to focus on that a little bit. I think it takes us into one of the first topics we want to really dive in here. So there's so much opportunity in this moment, and I see the practitioners in the space kind of bifurcated into two camps. I see a set of people who are really concerned about jobs, where they'll be, the profession, those types of things. I think a lot of that is really grounded in legitimate and important concern. I want to say more about that a little bit later. But on the point that you were making, the moment of opportunity, I think that really comes down to, what is the foundational purpose of TechComm? If we go all the way back to that, why do we have documentation? And fundamentally, it's always been the canonical source of truth for a certain set of information. So you said something interesting there about data lakes, where they were an enterprise infrastructure that was brought in over the course of however long, and it's become a new topic. A lot of people are bullish on them again because of their ability to feed into AI systems. They can be seen as a canonical form of truth for a lot of forms of numerical data and other things like that inside of the enterprise. And I think that model and pattern applies very nicely over into TechComm. When you're thinking about process and product usage and a lot of those pieces of information, I think it's critical to remember that documentarians, information developers, technical writers, whatever you want to call them, they're the source and guardians and maintainers of that canonical source of truth.
Yeah, I think that definition, like the why of TechComm, is your definition is a little internal focusing.
Sure.
Like, why maintain a source of truth?
Yeah.
What is the business purpose of a source of truth? The business purpose of a source of truth is to be able to deliver people reliable answers, and the purpose of that is to make sure that they get value out of your product or service,
Totally.
so that they keep working with you. So,
well, let's linger there for a second. So I think that the point you made about what I was saying is actually really important, because I'm so in the industry that I think I've picked up a lot of those habits, where I feel that maintaining a source of truth has intrinsic value. But what you just said is critical to that, like understanding how to explain outside of the room of TechComm, where people don't think about the intrinsic value of a highly governed source of truth.
yeah, no, I've had that debate with many people, and some tech commerce, especially, will just go to the mat about, that high quality content is high value content. I'm going, content has no value whatsoever. Yeah. It doesn't matter how much work you put into it. I like to say content is literally like money. Mm-hmm. Like, it only has value when it moves. Mm-hmm. If it's not being if there's no transactions, if no one is being able to do anything with it, it has no value, and it can be devalued. So you can have warehouses full of Deutschmarks. They're not worth anything. Content is useful in as much as it helps people do things, and so I think we have to keep track of that when we're looking at what is the goal here. And I do find that I'm a consultant. I work with a lot of content people, and we go to the executive together and ask for money. So we have to go in, and one of the main things is we have to kind of peel away all of those arguments that are about good governance or single source of truth and blah blah blah, and turn those into what is enabled by these things, which the business wants, because that's all that the funders are asking about. Everything else is a means to an end.
Absolutely. A quick aside, I was actually an economist by training, and I still follow a lot of things. It's like one of my general interests. So if we're going to start relating fiscal policy, monetary policy, and like abstract things about economics into content, we're gonna have a lot of fun today.
Awesome. Well, I'm delighted to be here, Patrick. You're actually one of my favorite people to disagree with in the world.
That's true. I would agree with that. That's so fun. I remember when we did one of the first components that you were on. This has got to be 5 years ago now. And after the show, you were like, haven't you ever heard of yes and? Like, have you never taken an improv class? It's like, why did you disagree with everything I said? And I was like, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I hope we can get some roll going. But yeah, no, I enjoy arguing with you a ton. But it is, I do think that there's some bigger points here that we might have to build up to.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.